Hey there, my fellow YouTubers. This is Cassandra72, and I'm coming to you with an addendum to my week 12 Mounjaro update. As always, as I sit here rambling, I forget something and I need to take notes. That's what good YouTubers do, right? The thing that I forgot to do was to give you an update on, because it's all well and good when we're talking about how we're looking and the clothing and how the scale is moving, but I forgot to talk about where I am health-wise that I know about as far as this medication is going. June 27th, 2023. And I don't know, they always have me at 5'4". I am not 5'4". I am 5'3". They don't press this hair down. You can press whatever, but I'm 5'3". But they have me at 5'4", which is kind of better for the BMI that's clearly still in the obese category. So it's better to look up the BMI, but yeah, I'm 5'3". I definitely haven't grown any. If anything, I probably shrunk. But in any event, I forgot to give you those results. Back June 27th, when I did the biometric screening at my job, I was looking at a glucose of 195. My triglycerides were 167. They should be less than 150. Glucose, especially when fasting, should have been less than 100 milligrams per deciliter. Hope I'm saying that right. And then my HDL, and I'm not looking at my Quest for Health account, so it would actually give me a range of the however long I've been taking these, but the HDL has never been where it's supposed to be because that's supposed to be greater than 50. That was at 47, but I think that's the highest it's ever been. It's supposed to be greater than 50, and what they say, what it means is that a high level is good because HDL is the type of cholesterol that helps to remove the cholesterols from the arteries. So that's always been on the lower side for me, but it was 47, so I was almost there. Do suffer from high blood pressure. That was high at 134/86, and they said it should be less than 130/85. So I was closer than where I should have been on that, but still high. And my waist circumference at the time they measured was 58. And so look, I never realized that they said this is also called central obesity or having an apple shape, and it is a sign of being overweight or obese. And then my total cholesterol at the time was 238, which was too high because it should have been 125 to 199. My LDL, which should have been less than 100, was 159. We already talked about my HDL. My cholesterol should have been less than 5. It was at a 5.1. My triglycerides were at a 167. Should have been less than 150. And I think I've talked about everything else. My BMI at the time was 62. And of course, we know the range should be between 18.5 to 24.9. And then my non-HDL cholesterol should have been less than 130. It was at a 191. Now, that was back in June of 2023 when I was sent for my lab core results. I was pretty much, which Weight Watchers sequence wanted me to do, I was pretty much still everything too high. My glucose was 199. So that was still that same range where I was 195 in 2023. So, and this was back on May the 3rd. So it was 199. So that's where I was there. Then they measure for a lot of other stuff on the metabolic panel that is not on my Quest for Health, so we'll skip over that. My hemoglobin A1C was 9. They don't show that on the Quest for Health, but I was at a 9, which meant that diabetes was, pre-diabetes is 5.7 to 6.4, and diabetes is greater than 6.4, so I was at a 9, so clearly diabetic. And then they said glycemic control for adults with diabetes is less than 7. So I guess that's if I'm controlled, that's where they're expecting my numbers to be. Anything less than 7. For comparison to the Quest for Health, they do show my overall cholesterol being at 218 back in May, which was a little bit better than it was the year before. It was at 218 versus the 238. My LDL was at 159. I don't think that, okay, that's not being shown. But my triglycerides were at 147, down from 167. So this is even, pre-medication. And my HDL was at a 46, so it went down. I do need to work on however it is that I need to get that improved. I need to get that improved. So those are the only two that I can really compare. The triglycerides, the HDL, actually 3, and my total cholesterol. That's what's on the LabCorp report. I had a biometric screening just this past Tuesday on the 6th, and those results was looking a little something like this. My HDL has gone down to 38. It was at 47 a year ago. Need to work on improving that, as I said. But my triglycerides, where they were at 167 with my last Quest Diagnostics report, and 147, basically a year later, we're at 147. But then about 3 months later, I'm at a 91. And they wanted to be less than 50, so I'm really good range there. And my glucose is still high, but it went from 199 in May to 118. So we're good there. And for some reason, my waist circumference is higher. So I'm not sure what they were doing. It had been going down, I think. But anyway, they have it at 60 now. So I'm not really sure if some things are shifting or whatever. But that is not what I had when I measured at home either. And actually 60 is at the end of the measuring tape. And I was not at the end of the measuring tape. So in any event, that needs to go down. But I also, again, they have me at 544, but since my last biometric screen, they put me at 339. Now at home, I was 338 last week, but 339. So that puts me at, I was actually 21 pounds less than I was at the last biometric screening. And oh, I forgot, at the end of this report, it does show where I was overall from last year. My glucose went down to 118 from 195. My total cholesterol was 238 in June 2023. In May of 2024 was 218. Total cholesterol 145. The triglycerides, we've already talked about that. They were at 167 in June 2023. May 24, 147. Now they are at 91. My HDL went from 47 to 46 to 38. So gotta fix that because it should be at 50. My LDL cholesterol, which should be less than 100, best it's ever been, is at an 89. It was at 159 last year at Quest Diagnostics. 89 this year. The cholesterol HDL ratio should have been less than 5, and it was at a 3.8. Again, best it's ever been. No. November 2020 at 3.7 was the best it's ever been, but last year it was 5.1, and it's 3.8 this year. And then the non-HDL cholesterol, which should have been less than 130. Last year I was at 191, and this year I'm at 107. So it's doing its thing. It is doing its thing. So I'm pretty freaking happy about that. So I am, doing better on the inside and the outside. So I just wanted to come in and give you that update because I knew that after I rambled on all that time that there was something else that I wanted to report on. But that was it, my numbers. So I am real excited about that. And I know that was kind of apples to apples and a little bit of oranges in there. So the next time that I update these numbers will be actually November, I think we said, and it's in my sequence app messages as well. But I asked about when they would do an update because I'm like, what is, it's a telehealth situation with sequence, but I wanted to know when they would do a follow-up to my labs because that just makes sense, right? And so I did upload the new Quest report to my Weight Watchers app, but as far as what Weight Watchers had to say about it, they told me that they did basically 6-month increments. Well, actually what they said was they don't normally send repeat lab orders, which does not make sense. But I was told that the clinician, because this was the care coordinator, said that they would advise me further, the clinician would, and determine if I need to be sent for follow-up labs. So it says, then she came back and said that the clinician said that the recommended recheck with Weight Watchers is 6 months. If I wanted to check sooner, follow up with my primary care provider, but they will do it at the 6-month mark. So I will come back at the 6-month mark and request they do the labs again then, because that's not something that that I ended up paying for, and I guess that's why they say they don't do it. But I guess the every 3 months. But if you are my clinician and this is a service that I do pay monthly for, definitely, how are you going to make sure that I'm doing, because you're basically relying on a self-reporting. And of course, we're being honest. But other than the qualification where they asked for us to take a picture of the scale, which your feet had to be in the scale, which who's the scale? Those are my feet. But anyway, which they wanted to see the numbers on the scale, your feet on the scale. Other than that, there was nothing really strenuous about, making sure that every week that you're posting this information. You just go in and you update, and they're not asking to see, the blood pressure monitor or the scale or what have you. So it's a self-reporting kind of thing, which, like I said, being truthful, but yeah, so it's like, don't you kind of want to see if you got people on these medications, like what it's doing for them health-wise, especially now, like I said, initially they put me on Zepbound. Don't know why when they said, okay, you're diabetic. And they also had me on the metformin through the Weight Watcher sequence, because they said it was free with my membership / whatever subscription. But with my insurance, that was going to be free anyway, no matter where I got that from. But they are actually pretty pleased with where I am so far with the weight loss. Because when they did the increase, because they ask you when you go to do your request for your refill, they ask you if you want to stay on the current dose or if you want to if you have a preference, if you want to decrease, increase. And I said, go ahead and give me that 7.5, basically because as I talked about in the previous video, trying to kind of work the system within its ranges, and I knew that CVS was probably going to refill the 5 milligram, which I do have to pick up today. So that would give me 3 months of being on the 5, and then they could do the 7.5, and I would have working trying to make sure that I have medication in hand if there's ever a shortage again, which according to Eli Lilly, with their self-reporting, they're currently not in shortage, and they have released the vials, as they say, for the Zepbound, even though I am on Mounjaro. But they have released the vials for the 2.5 milligram and the 5 milligram of the Zepbound, which should help with the shortages over there. And since they are basically the same medication, it's just that Zepbound is branded for weight loss, while Mounjaro is for diabetics. My insurance again covers both, so if there ever is, I guess, a issue with not being able to get my Mounjaro in the higher dosages, maybe them having released the vials with the Zepbound even though it's in the lower dosages, it makes the pens more readily available for the higher dosages. And then I would be able to switch over to that if there's any differences in the shortages that were to come between Mounjaro and Zepbound. But I highly doubt it, because whenever there's been a shortage like for instance, with Mounjaro, they were saying last week, I think it was, or the week before, that it was a 10 milligram and the 15 milligrams that were supposedly having the shortage issues. And it was the exact same thing for the Zepbound. I don't really think it would benefit me from one to the other, but who knows. But yeah, so I did request today they switched me to the 7.5 so that I would have that already on hand while I was still taking the 5. The clinician was pretty happy to see where I was going with the weight loss. She was good to approve me at the 7.5. She agreed with me moving up because she said my weight loss was within the recommended range, and I hadn't logged any side effects recently because I really haven't had anything other than a slight constipation, which never lasts long. So I was glad to see that I was in the I was glad that I was in the recommended rank, that I was losing at the recommended pace. And I told her that I had, constipation occasionally, but it's no more than a day or so. So I felt good about it. She did say that the recommended weight loss was between 0.5 and 1% of your total body weight loss per week. So apparently I'm right on track there. So I am excited with those numbers. So yes, and just, I guess, to be a little technical or whatever the word is that I'm grasping for, the clinician did tell me also that when weight is lost, it is a combination of posts, which is fat storage tissue and muscle mass. So staying within the recommended range of weight loss helps to prevent too much muscle mass loss. So this is why adding resistance training to your fitness plan is recommended as well. And so, yes, those are things that, like I said, I addressed in the other video that I will be doing soon. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to do some at-home weight workouts today, get those added back in, because I did do a couple of those early on as well, and I like those. So they give you like a new set of their fitness instructor, trainer, what have you, does do a series of videos each month that's, you know, relatively easy to follow along with. So I'll be adding those in, because that is one thing that I am concerned about as well. I didn't talk about how the Renfo, how my numbers are looking there, but I will address that in another video. But just as a preview, I will state that as the weight is going down, so therefore is also the muscle mass. But I'm still in a very good range, so we're good there. But I just don't want to keep saying muscle loss, because I am, I am concerned about, losing strength and possibly being in a situation where if I were to go off the medication, all of a sudden the weight is just going to suddenly come back, because it's so much, muscle being lost as well. I guess if that makes any sense. But yeah, but I will talk about that, like I said, in another video. But I am trying to increase those things that need to be increased over there. But that's a subject for another day. I do have to get ready to truly get to work here. As I stated, it is my one day in the office on Tuesday. My boss is normally in on Wednesday, but she had a pretty busy day of scheduling today that had her being in the office, since they have a meeting, I think that's once a month, and it happens to be on Tuesday. So she just switched her day to today. And even though she's not in currently, I need to get to work. She's gonna be kind of busy all day and looking at her calendar. But yeah, let me get to getting it and do what they pay me for. But that is it, you guys. Again, questions or comments, leave them below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, until the next video, peace and blessings.